Hey everyone, welcome to Quick Review. Today I'm looking at American Fugitive, a Grand Theft Auto-like open-world game that has you take on the role of a fugitive framed for his father's murder. I won't dive too deep into the story or what happens in the game, but that's the general idea. You are definitely a self-aware and admitted criminal. The story just revolves around the fact that you're falsely convicted for the murder of your father, and your goal is to find out who actually did it and why. Oh, and to also wipe that particular crime off your records, so you can simply be known for other potentially heinous crimes you've committed. I was really torn on how I felt about this game. When I played through it, I ran into a lot of problems, and there were a lot of things that felt inconsistent or generally just didn't make sense. The way your wanted level builds up seemed to be largely random. Sometimes I'd scrape my car against someone else's car while I was driving, and I'd instantly be at 5 stars. Other times I'd literally crash at full speed into a cop car, and they'd just drive away like nothing happened. There were other times I'd be fleeing, and I'd drive by the officers chasing me down just to have my wanted level magically vanish. I didn't change cars, I didn't change clothing. I was in full view of them the entire time, and I'd just suddenly be let off. That's not all. There were a lot of other issues too. Other cars don't obey the rules of the road like you'd normally expect. I'd regularly bump into cars that were turning right into oncoming traffic because they just ignored the fact that I was strolling down the road. At that point, the cops would be chasing me again, despite the fact that I clearly did nothing wrong. This is a small nitpick, but when you're comparing yourself to games like GTA, it's small things like this that really defined and set GTA apart. Attention to detail. I could probably talk for a while about small issues, like NPC cars driving off of roads and into trees, but I'm not going to. I said I was torn, and that's because all of these things are mildly frustrating and take away from the game. However, in our current world of gaming, these issues can also be patched out and fixed or improved, so I'm not going to focus on bugs or AI issues unless they actually break the game. I want to focus more on whether or not the game is fun. And it is. The vast majority of the time, anyways. The story is somewhat engaging. You meet characters that help you unravel the mystery surrounding your father's death. You take on missions towing and crushing cars, stealing items from houses, shops, even police stations. Sometimes you'll have missions that drag you straight into gunfights. The only issue that I had was that acquiring missions was a little tedious. Regardless, the actual mechanics of the game were solid. Driving generally felt good. Cars were a little more drifty than I would typically expect them to be, which led to some mildly frustrating moments where my cars would spin out or collide into objects they had no business colliding with. But other times, the wonky controls could lead me to stopping on a dime to avoid careening into an oncoming train. Driving had its ups and downs, but generally they made it fun getting from point A to point B as soon as you got the hang of driving anyways. Gunfights were also generally enjoyable, although they were riddled with a few flaws as well. There was something that just felt really off from time to time. It was really hard to put a finger on it as well. Did the enemies have giant health pools? Were my shots missing despite being properly aimed? Did the guns spread more than you'd expect them to? Were my shots simply not registering? I don't know. It wasn't a common occurrence, but from time to time, something felt off. However, the vast majority of the time, gunfights were awesome, and I generally preferred missions that had me using weapons over missions that simply had me running around or being a thief. Speaking of being a thief, stealing from homes is basically a minigame. Break into someone's house and you'll be greeted with an interior map. Depending on how you entered, the police may or may not be called. If they are, you'll have a certain amount of time to sift through the house and steal whatever you want. Depending on how well you cased the house, sometimes you'll run into a homeowner and you'll have to figure out exactly what to do with them. I personally enjoyed this sort of minigame. It was fun and probably made stealing items a lot less monotonous than it could have been. Finally, in regards to the open world aspect of the game, I never felt a desire to really stray from the main path. There are things to do, but for the most part, I only found myself exploring when I had to for a mission, or when I needed a change of clothes or vehicles while I was on the run. There is a lot to do though. There are lots of missions and challenges scattered around the world. I just felt like there wasn't any incentive to seek them out. Anyways, that's American Fugitive. All in all, I enjoyed this game. It has a lot of flaws, there are undoubtedly a lot of bugs as well, and it could really just use a little more polish. However, these are all things that can likely be fixed, and the core mechanics of the game left me enjoying my time with the game. If you're on the fence, maybe wait a few weeks and see how and if it gets patched up, but it's generally a solid enough title. And don't forget, this is just in my opinion. If you feel like I left something out, disagree, or just want to suggest something else for me to review, leave a comment. I try to review a few games a week, and I'm going to be releasing some other content related to gaming in the next few weeks too. You don't want to miss it, so don't forget to subscribe. You know, if you wanna. Otherwise, thanks for watching.